When we talk about credit score or credit in general, sometimes your credit could be frozen even if you didn't freeze it. And so, in today's conversation, I want to talk to you about frozen credit. What is the impact? What are the consequences? And what can really cause it if you did not actually initiate the freezing? So, here are some general considerations you need to really think about. First of all, how do you check? How do you actually check if your credit is frozen? Because the last thing you want is that, let's say you want to apply for a loan or you want to apply for a credit card, and then the lender's telling you, "Hey, listen, your credit is frozen, so we can't really approve you." And this could be a little problematic, especially if you need a loan for something, right? So to find out if your credit is frozen, you need to access each of your credit reports individually with the three major credit bureaus. So you got to really contact TransUnion, you got to contact Experian, and you got to contact also Equifax. So credit freezes are not universal. So one of your credit files may be frozen while the others remain unlocked. So this is important to think about. So annualcreditreport.com is a centralized portal that lets you request free credit reports once a week for free. And so you can use it to view your credit reports regardless of whether or not there is a freeze in place. If there is a freeze on any of your reports, there should be a statement indicating this. So it has to be pretty straightforward. And this is the law, okay? So the law says that you got to really inform folks that, okay, this credit is actually frozen. This credit file, okay? You can also check for a freeze with the bureaus directly. This process is different for each credit bureau. So with Experian, you can do via Experian support. You can call Experian at 1-888-397-3742 to check if your file is frozen. You'll be prompted to input your social security number and may be asked for additional information to actually verify your identity. And so you can also have you can actually verify via TransUnion. With TransUnion Service Center, the easiest way to check your account's freeze status is by logging into the TransUnion Service Center. From there, navigate to the credit freeze tab to see your account's freeze status. You can also contact 1-800-916-8800. And with Equifax, you have to log into to My Equifax account to check if your file is frozen. And under Equifax credit report status, you will find a statement that lets you know whether or not a freeze is in place. You can also contact Equifax by phone 1-888-298-0045 and verify your identity to check your freeze status. Now, what happened if you didn't freeze your credit, but it's frozen, right? Stuff happens, and you're like, "Wow, I can't believe I'm just sitting here. I have applied for a credit card, and they just say they can't really check. They can't really initiate a hard pull on my credit." So if you find out that one or more of your credit files are frozen, but you did not initiate a freeze request, it certainly cause for concern. So I want to share with you a few of the most common reasons your credit might have been frozen without your knowledge. First of all, you have system errors. Stuff happens. Nobody's perfect. I mean, technology is really advanced nowadays, especially when it comes to credit bureaus. But stuff happens, error happens. So if your credit was frozen without you initiating it, there is a good chance that it's the result of a simple error made to your identifying information, such as your name, address, or phone number. And what you want to do is you want to review the information in your file and contact the bureau in question if you notice that something is incorrect. Remember, as I told you, your Experian credit could be unfrozen, but your Equifax or your TransUnion could actually be problematic. I mean, so it's something to really think about. And what I want to say is that you got to really ask yourself, what do you want to actually, how do you want to initiate the whole process? So besides error, you can also have file mix-ups. So credit file mix-ups can sometimes occur if you share an address or have, let's say, a similar name to another person. I mean, some names are so common. You have John Doe. I'm not John Doe. I mean, Jerry Smith or whatever. So if you have a name that's really common, be very careful there. And this is known as a mixed credit file, and happens when more than one person's information is unintentionally combined in a credit bureau's system. If there is activity on your credit report that you don't recognize, such as a security phrase, it could really indicate a mixed credit file. And what you want to do is you want to contact the relevant credit bureau as soon as possible, explain the problem. No need to panic, right? Explain the problem and give your actual social security number so they can they can actually track things, not at the name level, but only at the social security number level. So you can actually have your credit frozen because of identity theft or fraud. Stuff happens. I mean, in this economy, you have a lot of thieves, you have a lot of scammers, especially during COVID. A lot of folks were a victim of identity theft or even fraud. So they had their credit frozen for no reason. Okay. So identity thieves typically thaw credit so that they can use it to have, let's say, to take out unauthorized loans and credit cards. In one instance, a fraudster unfroze a California bank's Experian file and used it to apply for multiple new credit lines using the bank's identity. So it's important to really monitor your credit, to actually track things to make sure that you are actually safe. And I mean, you're safe, but also your family is safe. Your finances are safe in general. But any unprompted freezes should also raise alarms. If your credit is unexpectedly frozen, there is a possibility that scammers are trying to cover up their tracks after obtaining new lines of credit in your name, right? So it's one of those things where you have to really monitor things on a consistent basis. You also have data breaches. Data breaches could cause actually your credit to be frozen. So if any company that has your social security number is the victim of a data breach, including credit bureaus, identity thieves could actually gain access to your credit accounts, use your social security number to apply for new loans in your name, or even initiate freezes and or thaws. And in the event of a breach, credit bureaus strongly advise that you freeze your credit, but freezes are never automatically applied. So if you notice one or more of your files are frozen after a breach, this should actually raise alarms, and you have to take it seriously. And what you want to do is you want to first contact the credit bureau so they know that there is a problem on your file, and then you can actually maybe contact law enforcement also, especially if you have been a victim of identity theft, so that law enforcement can actually lend an extra layer of credibility to your story, especially as you contact lenders, as you contact credit bureaus. Let's talk about steps to unfreeze your credit. So if your credit is frozen, you got to really unfreeze it, right? The most common ways to unfreeze your credit are by doing so online or by calling the bureau's customer service line. As I said a little earlier, you have to really do this individually, one by one, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. So you can also unfreeze your credit. You can actually send a removal request via mail. This takes longer to process. So while it's relatively simple to unfreeze your own credit, the process is more in-depth if you're acting on behalf of your child or, let's say, an incapacitated adult. So to thaw a protected consumer's credit, the bureaus require you to mail the following. So a written request to thaw the credit file, piece of documentation that proves that you have the authority to act on behalf of the individual, like a birth certificate or power of attorney, and also copies of documentation that verify your identity and or the minor dependent's identity, such as copies of both your social security cards. That's kind of lengthy, but it's important. And free credit freezes and removals are available to all U.S. consumers under the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act. So this is actually a piece of law that's really comprehensive, especially when it comes to credit freezes and the fact that they should be free. And the Federal Trade Commission mandates that the bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian must remove a freeze within an hour if you request a thaw electronically or by phone. If sent via mail, I'm speaking here about snail mail, the freeze must be lifted within 3 business days after the request is received. And when you send a mail, please make sure that you have a notification attached to it, so that way you know that, hey, listen, they have received your correspondence. And especially, you do not want this piece of info to be lost, right? If you choose to thaw your credit, you don't have to do so permanently. You can request a temporary thaw that allows lenders to access your credit reports only within a time frame that you specify. And temporary thaws are useful if you want to apply for new credit, but you don't want your file to be left open indefinitely. I want to explain to you how you can request a thaw at each bureau, okay? So, how do you unfreeze your credit with Experian? Online, if you have an Experian account, log in into the Security Freeze Center and navigate to the Help Center. Click on Manage Security Freeze and then toggle the freeze status to unfrozen in order to lift the freeze. By phone, to request the lift via phone, call 1-888-397-3742 and follow the automated prompts. You do not need a PIN to manage your Experian freeze status. Also by mail, you can mail a removal request to Experian Security Freeze P.O. Box 9554 Allen, Texas 75013. You should include your full name, social security number, date of birth, and current address. So that's for Experian. How do you unfreeze your credit with TransUnion? Online, log into the TransUnion Service Center and navigate to the Credit Freeze tab. Click on Remove Freeze to permanently remove the freeze, or click on Temporarily Lift Freeze to unfreeze your credit for a specified date range. By phone, you can initiate a TransUnion thaw by calling 1-800-916-8800. You no longer need a 6-digit PIN to manage your freeze over the phone or by mail. Requests to thaw your TransUnion report can be mailed to TransUnion P.O. Box 160, Woodlane, Pennsylvania 19094. Include identifying information such as your full name, your social security number, date of birth, and current address. And what about unfreezing your credit with Equifax? So online, visit My Equifax and log into your account. By phone, you can call 1-888-298-0045 to unfreeze your credit with Equifax. In order to verify your identity, you will need to provide information about your Equifax file or receive a one-time PIN sent to your mobile device. Under your credit report status, click on Manage a Freeze. Before submitting the request, you'll be able to select whether you want a temporary lift or a permanent removal. By mail, send your removal request to Equifax Information Services, LLC, P.O. Box 105788, Atlanta, Georgia 30348 5788. And to verify your identity, be sure to include your full name and date of birth, social security number, and current address. So when we talk about a security, let's say your credit being frozen, it's important to understand that this can be a consequence of a fraud alert on your credit, right? So if there is a fraud alert on your credit, what happens here is that credit bureaus automatically will actually put your credit unfrozen in an unfrozen status until they actually fix the problem. So a fraud alert is a notice placed on your credit reports that alerts lenders that you may have been a victim of identity theft or fraud. Placing a fraud alert at any one of the 3 credit reporting agencies automatically initiates notices to your credit files at the other 2 bureaus. So basically, when you actually place a fraud alert on TransUnion, there will be an automatic message sent to Equifax and Experian that, hey, listen, there was a problem. And while a credit freeze prevents anyone, even you, from opening new credit accounts, a fraud alert nudges credit card and loan companies to take additional steps to verify your identity before extending you credit. And the same approach applies to insurance companies. So insurance companies also have an additional cautionary tale in terms of dealing with you before they actually give you insurance, they also have to take additional steps. Okay, and it's important to understand that credit freezes typically only prevents hard inquiry credit checks. So soft inquiries, sometimes called soft pulls, may still be performed by existing creditors, insurance providers, and credit card companies sending you a pre-screening offers, for instance, especially if you have good credit. I mean, they will send you credit. They will send you a pre-screened offers if you have good credit. If you have fantastic credit, yeah. But if you have, let's say, subpar credit, you're not getting those pre-screened offers from credit card companies, loan companies, or insurance companies. So this is something to really think about, especially when you're trying to really protect not only your credit but also your the credit of your family members. So when we talk about your credit being frozen and you have the ability to actually unfreeze your credit, it's important to understand the consequences of having freezing versus unfrozen. I mean, frozen versus unfrozen credit, right? Now, can a credit freeze bring down your credit score? Basically, it really depends. You can initiate a security freeze with any of the three major credit bureaus with no impact to your credit score under certain circumstances. If anything, a credit freeze can prevent score decreases that come from hard inquiries by blocking them. However, it doesn't prevent changes to your score that derive from your payment or credit history, among other factors. So you still have to really think about your financial situation and see how your how that situation could impact your credit score, not only in the short run but also in the long run. So if you were to freeze your credit for 6 year, I mean for 6 months or 1 year, for instance, this is not going to freeze your credit score in the same period. That's what I mean. If your credit score was at 600 and you actually are continuing to pay your bills on time, you're continuing to really reduce your CUR, your credit utilization ratio, you're continuing to reduce your DTI, bringing it down below 30%. All this will have a positive impact on your credit. So can you also have can you have both a credit lock and freeze at the same time? Well, no. Generally, you can't lock and freeze your credit files at the same time. If you want to lock a credit file that's frozen, you will need to thaw your account before you'll be able to do so. So this is kind of important. The thawing process is sort of preliminary to you actually doing the freezing, the unfreezing process. However, Experian does make it possible to initiate both a lock and a freeze on your Experian credit file, but it is not necessary because both of these services achieve the same purpose, which is what? Preventing identity thieves from obtaining unauthorized credit in your name. Then that's what you care about anyway, right? You don't want anybody to actually use your good name to actually obtain fraudulent credit, fraudulent loans, fraudulent credit cards, or fraudulent insurance policies. So whether you thought or you freeze the credit, this will achieve the goal, and that's all that matters anyway. So here's a recap. I was just speaking to you today about frozen credit. Why is your credit frozen? What to do to unfreeze it? I gave you the general considerations and explained to you what to do in terms of contacting Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.